Welcome to White Pill Radio, the every other episode version of Theology on Air, a ministry of theology by the pint. We here look at current events. We try to put a Christian worldview spin on things. I like to say that this is post-apologetic, ultimately hopeful, applied theology that does look at news and current events from a Christian worldview. I also like to say that this is
blessed talk, not happy talk.
Right, no happy talk, no happy. This is all real. This is all very contemporary, if you will. So we like to have fun on these versions. So thanks for joining us. I had some people say these are their favorite episodes because they're hot and spicy.
Just like I like my pizza.
Exactly. But thanks for joining us, Theology by the Pint. Of course, you can go to theologybythepint.com or .org to learn more about Theology by the Pint. If this is the first time you found the podcast, subscribe. Find us on YouTube as well. Subscribe there. We want to increase our numbers so that the word gets around more and more. We think we have something kind of unique and special to offer, especially when these guys join us because they're so smart and well-spoken and everything. But anyway.
They disagree with each other, so that's where the spice comes in.
We have some really great events live and in person every month in Houston. Check it out, theologybythepint.org. And the Grand Poobah of Theology by the Pint is here, Sarah Stone.
I made an appearance today, you guys.
Yes.
I'll be signing autographs after. So.
Absolutely. So thanks for being here. And people can find you there or anywhere.
Everywhere.
Okay.
All social media, Sarah Stone, Sarah Garment Stone. I'm on the Theology by the Pint website, as is Evan.
Yep. And Austin Freeman, representing himself. Maybe the institution at which he teaches, which is Houston Christian University. But we won't hold them to account in case he says anything too controversial.
I don't plan on it.
All right. But glad to have you. And you teach apologetics? Or
what is post-apologetics, I thought it was post-apocalyptic. So maybe I'm in the wrong place. No? Okay.
Yeah. No, it's okay if you're an apologetics professor, even though we're we're kind of over it now, but yeah.
We're over it.
Not really.
Well, maybe I can persuade you otherwise.
Yeah.
Hey, I see what you did there.
And I'm Ken. I'm an accountant.
Yeah.
He was getting to you. He's more than an accountant.
I do numbers. That's what I do.
And he does numbers for Theology by the Pint, so we love him.
And he has lots of opinions. He's not afraid to share them, and he's theologically informed. So
and he's our local anarchist.
Yes.
Anarchist,
Our very own.
Anabaptist, accountant. Let's go.
AAA.
And I'm Evan. I'm the pastor at First Lutheran. But, I should probably say these views represent my own because I realized that the other night, one of my members was there. And I said, well, did you have fun? She's like, well, I had to slink down in my chair a few times, like every time I spoke. So
no. Oh,
yeah. Anyway,
you can go and hear those. We put them all out on the podcast and on YouTube.
Yeah.
So you can go check it out and see if it makes you slink down in your chair.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's jump in. Everyone ready for Civil War? Apparently, there's movies about it coming out. We're being pre-programmed for that. What kind of American are you, Ken? If you've seen the memes, the Jesse Plemons memes from the trailer of that movie, never mind. Anyway, there is an issue going on in the Texas border. Texas is basically saying that it has the right to stop people from coming into its border, and the United States government, with a 5-4 Supreme Court ruling, is basically saying, well, actually, you don't have the right to judge your own border. Let me just look at a couple of paragraphs from this article, and there's other articles we can look at, but just to get the ball rolling here. Supreme Court allows federal agents to cut razor wire, Texas installed on U.S.-Mexico border. This is from APnews.com. A divided Supreme Court on Monday allowed Border Patrol agents to resume cutting, for now, razor wire that Texas installed along a stretch of the U.S.-Mexico border that is at the center of an escalating standoff between the Biden administration and the state over immigration enforcement. The 5-4 vote clears the way for Border Patrol agents to cut or clear out concertina wire that Texas has put along the banks of the Rio Grande to deter migrants from entering the U.S. illegally. Some migrants have been injured by the sharp wire, and the Justice Department has argued the barrier impedes the U.S. government's ability to patrol the border, including coming to the aid of migrants in need of help. So, this kind of gets into broader questions, I think, of whether or not Christians, because we want to look at things from a Christian worldview, not just kind of a base political worldview, but whether, what Christians should think about immigration. But I'll open up the floor. Where should we kind of begin this large conversation?
Did you say base political view or based political view? Because
I think what I meant to say was a kind of neutral political view.
Okay.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
base. Yeah,
Gotcha.
yeah. Based would imply a worldview.
I'm about to drop it, so let's go.
Okay. Well, I'm guessing our resident anarchist is like, well, borders are just a line on a map or something.
A spook, yeah.
Okay. A spook? What is that, like a CIA agent?
Oh, okay. I got to introduce you to Max Sterner.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. No, save that for later.
So, borders, are they for, in America, are they for economic security or like security? What do we think?
Yes.
Yes and yes?
Sure.
Okay.
Definitely the second. Yeah.
More security. So this is more about like cartels.
That's what comes to my mind first. I'm a mom, so maybe that's why.
Because like cartels and fentanyl is a little bit of both. It's a little bit of economic because, the black market is still a market that responds to incentives. And then, the cartels actually operating in America, they operate in a, kind of a outside of the law.
Yeah.
Sort of.
Criminal.
Yeah.
One might say.
Yeah. But even like black markets for security still respond to incentives the way that regular markets for security do. So.
Are you making the case that we should have open borders because it actually helps our economy?
Okay. So do we think open borders would be good, bad for the economy, neutral? What do we think?
I don't know that I have enough to.
Huge question that there's not a single answer to.
Sure.
But that just wouldn't even be my first question. My first question would be about safety.
The question is how many of the migrants are coming over for economic reasons and how many are coming over for...
I would say this. Nations can trade whether you have a closed border or not.
Okay. So
yeah.
But in fact, to have a nation, you have to have a closed border. Otherwise, you don't have a nation.
Free market, Milton Friedman kind of guy?
Not necessarily. Milton Freeman would advocate more of a libertarian point of view that would say that, I mean, this is actually the major shift, I would say, in conservative politics the last, 40, 50 years, that you had a kind of libertarian economic view that really took hold of the Republican Party, basically advocating for free trade. And what the populist nationalist movement now, it opposes free trade, and so when you look at the article that's related to this, where Trump is talking about bringing back tariffs, and generally speaking, tariffs were an allergy to the Republican Party and the conservative movement. Yeah. Yes, because the idea was if China can make a widget cheaper, we still benefit from the intellectual property, et cetera. That has proven to be, it might be true in an economic sense, but it is ultimately catastrophic, as we see, to the part of the country we would call the Rust Belt. Generally speaking, you don't want a whole part of your country called Rust because it means things are dying. And that's how, Trump won in 2016, basically. He went into that Rust Belt and he said, I'll bring the jobs back to America. The outsourcing of jobs is a really stupid idea. And so anyway, so I'm not a free trader, absolutist, although I once was when I was young and dumb.
Young and dumb. Okay. Yeah. So
I'm mocking.
Where's the middle ground between the Luddites and like we have to, make work jobs for the Rust Belt?
Well, I think the Rust Belt people, the denizens of the Rust Belt, still have, skills. And so we just simply need to make things. That's all. I think the middle ground is that we say, tariffs are the middle ground. Basically, it's an economic incentive that says it's cheaper for you to make something here than to do it over there.
Is this exactly what we did in 1828, like pre-Civil War kind of stuff? With tariffs, so that the northern companies, am I just making this up?
No, tariffs
are a huge part.
Yeah. Tariffs are, they're
the textile industry. Yeah.
We call it trade war for a reason. They're not, they can be quite serious, but sometimes it's your only weapon. And at this point, it's sort of the only weapon that we have. And my mind has changed. I distinctly remember being in the primary, when Trump was in the primary in 2016, the Never Trump contingent in part was because he was proposing tariffs. Yeah. And the Milton Friedman, economists in the world are like, that's crazy. We can never have tariffs. And I have to say, my mind has totally been changed on that. I think protectionism gets kind of a bad name, either at a border or at an economic level. So
perfect segue for AI.
This?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Ask.
Well, how many million migrants have we?
It's between 6 and 10, depending on who you ask.
So
on top of the 20 to 30 to 40 that were already here.
Yes. And so
not to treat them as non-persons.
Most of which are not coming here because they have a genius visa, right? Like they're coming here because they are desperate. They want some sort of support. They want safety. They're not coming here because they want to contribute some giant piece of the American economy, right? They are going to take whatever job that they can in order to support their family or to send back to whatever country of origin they come from. These are mostly going to be because they're relatively unskilled in the American economy. These are going to be lower income jobs. These are going to be labor jobs. How much does an abstract conversation of tariffs and protectionism actually relate to the 6 to 10 million people
not much
coming over the border?
Well, I'm going to make the argument that free markets apply to both goods, which is what we talk about in tariffs, and services, which is what we talk about when we talk about borders, right? If you're a free market, you're a free market for goods and services, which is why, the libertarian split from the Republican Party on like tariffs has always been kind of frustrating, but like libertarians have always been split on borders.
Yeah. Here's what Milton Friedman said, though. He would say you can have an open border or you can have a welfare state, but you cannot have both.
Now, there we go.
Yeah, that's the problem, is that, you cannot have a country that is literally adding $1 trillion to its deficit every 100 days. That is so insanely crazy.
Like, it can't even.
It is so insanely crazy, and it is not only, it's not the elephant in the room. It's like the elephant sitting on top of the earth. I mean, it is going to wreck everything. It's going to create that will lead to war probably faster than anything else. But that said, you can't have an open border where people want to come in to get all the benefits of a society, but they don't want to contribute to that society. So they're taking tax money, but if they're not going to, pay those taxes later. They're going to send a lot of that money home. I mean, Trump is ridiculed for saying they're going to pay for the wall, but the plan for them, so to speak, to pay for the wall was to tax the money that they send home or something to that effect.
Well, the genius visas that you guys are talking about, like, they also send money home. Like, why is it like bad in one situation, not in the other?
Because the number of undocumented immigrants that are coming across the border and either not taking jobs and are stranded on the streets of New York City or Chicago or whatever is greater than the population of several United States combined, right?
States. Oh,
Right,
yes.
states.
United States, yeah.
So you're saying
several
more
states
than
of the United States
gotcha.
together.
I was going to say you're saying more than 50% of the population is undocumented.
Well, I mean, I think a question. I mean, we kind of talked about this at the last, Theology by the Pint event. So go back and listen to that if you want. But this is my issue with kind of a non-borders approach, which is, actually it's more efficient to distribute goods and if you have borders, if you have, so
Distinct zone, as it were.
yeah,
states have borders.
yeah.
And they're
Do we?
open-
I mean, Texas is literally trying to.
No, I'm saying they're open with relation to each other.
Sure.
Right? Like federalism,
Yeah.
if we're talking about Texas versus California, we don't close our borders.
But is
migrants from...
Here's my question, like, morally, is it wrong to prefer? Is it wrong to show a preference for a citizen of one country over another? And I don't think it is. I mean, there are some Christians, like libertarian Christians, who argue that, hey, we're all people, we're all the same in God's eyes, so you can't have nations, you can't have borders. And I would say, and what I said at the Theology by the Pint event was, eventually, if you take the money from one group of people and give it to another group of people, everyone's going to be dirt poor, And then Scotty, sorry he's not here, yeah. But he said, and you will be blessed by that. I'm like,
Well,
okay.
I disagree with you with him on welfare. Right?
Yeah.
I agree with you on welfare.
Yeah.
Well, and there's also a couple conversations happening. There's like the moral or like salvific conversation. Like, what does God think about people? Everyone's made in God's image. And so, yes, no one person is better than another in that way. No one's, closer to salvation or something, right? No Greek, no Jew, that whole thing. Yeah. But that's not the question that we're asking here. We're not asking about like who gets saved and how. We're asking things like, can you show preference to people in your own nation, your own community, that kind of thing? And
should a church be able to discriminate in its congregation by documented status?
Yikes. That feels like that's a whole other question.
That's kind of what we're asking.
I don't think so. I don't know of any church that would. However, whether or not a church should provide sanctuary, to ICE agents, I think is that I would probably say no. I think on the one hand, I'm like, well, that would defy federal authority. On the other hand, I'm like,
I like that.
Way to go, Texas! You're defying the Supreme Court. Actually, Texas is not defying the Supreme Court.
Nope.
They're simply saying, okay, you guys said the law, or you interpreted the law. Now you have to come do it. You have to put bodies on the ground who are armed, and you have to come get past our state, guard to get past it. So we are,
and they can keep putting up wire,
right?
Because the law wasn't that you can't put it up. It's
right.
just that we can come take it down.
Right.
Oh, it's just like a bunch of toddlers.
Well, can we ask this sort of litmus test question? I think all of us could agree that, as you mentioned, there is neither Jew nor Greek, barbarian, Scythian, slave, nor free. I think we can also all agree the New Testament is clear that the state does not hold the sword in vain. And that all of us as Christians ought to respect the authority of the state, even when it seems to be oppressive and tyrannical, because, of course, that's the condition under which Paul is writing these documents, and resist only insofar as it directly violates our faith commitments and our freedom to worship God or to do the things that God commands us to do.
Yes, to all of that.
So that's our baseline, right, is governments are legitimate. Government intervention and use of force is legitimate. Christians, the church is not a government, right? It's not a state. we should respect them, but there are limits to our respect. Can we hit all of those points?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Before the podcast, we were talking about Marcionism, though, right?
Whoa, that was deep.
Okay, where are we going here?
There's a lot of Old Testament stuff about welcoming refugees, which is why I asked the question about the church.
Yeah, so the church is not the state. The church welcomes the refugees.
In spite of the state. Because you were just saying, what if it contradicts your religious, the spirit and scripture speaking to you?
Yeah, no, this is actually where I was going with this.
Okay, cool.
Is what are the instances? This is the root question.
Yeah.
The instance in which you have to choose between being a good United States citizen and being a good Christian. That's the limit. That's the test case that we're examining here.
Mm-hmm.
Is the fact of the matter that in order to make a logical decision that is efficient and rational in terms of statecraft and the protection of borders, is that mutually exclusive to the non-state religious command that Christians, as individual persons, not as citizens, have to make? Is it mutually exclusive?
I would ask, when is it mutually exclusive? Because certainly it is, often. But the question is this one of those cases?
And I don't even quite understand what you're asking of us. Like, none of us can, I mean, we vote and we, call our congressman, that kind of thing, but we're not going down there and putting up or taking down razor wire. So are you asking, should we be happy about this? Like, what's the actual...
Well, in what sense is this a theological question? Because to the three of us, it probably makes a lot of sense that Texas has a right to defend the integrity of its borders.
Yeah.
And the United States also has a right to create its own laws as long as they're following due legislative process. But I think you're right that there is a tension here between your actions as a private Christian individual and your actions as a citizen representative of the Republic of the United States. There is a conflict here. I think there is.
Yeah.
And even from a secular view, right? Like, if I'm an employer, or if I,
Don't get too far away from that mic now.
If I'm an employer, or if I share a housing unit with somebody and we split rent, what business of the government, what business is it of theirs who I hire, who I choose to rent with, who I choose to, in some cases marry, right? The government has no part in here. If I want to welcome them into my house or into my business or into my,
Well, and I think for a long time, we did look the other way on a lot of immigration, seasonal. I mean, I know someone who has a ranch, and, it was common practice for people to do seasonal work 6 months out of the year, then go back over the border to Mexico and things like that.
I'm talking even longer time. I'm talking 17,
So do we trust American factories to treat these people well? Because the reports I've heard are basically it's slave labor. They have people coming over. But let's just talk about the human trafficking angle for a minute. Mm-hmm. You have these perverse incentives, and what is that? What is that? Where you have unintended consequences of a policy like this. So we have a romantic idea, perhaps, of an open border and helping people and that sort of thing. But bad people look at it and go, "Huh, I can traffic human beings."
Wait a minute. If the border's open, why would they need to be trafficked?
Because no one is keeping you from doing so, and because they have incentives to get free labor.
Well, no, coyotes are trying to sneak past a border that is...
Yeah, but we're not just talking about trafficking people we're talking about bringing people over to be trafficked.
Okay.
Right? I mean...
Okay,
well, but I mean...
I thought you were talking about coyotes.
There's still some minimal resistance so that people do have to be brought over by the cartels, in some kind of orderly fashion. And they're making a lot more money on human trafficking. And, I'm assuming we've all heard the stories of the probably hundreds of thousands of missing children now, and the children and women who are raped on the border. And, it's just so inhumane and so disgusting and so gross. And there's really no way of policing it as long as we're creating this incentive. So it's like the right hand doesn't know what the left hand is doing.
I think we're on opposite sides of this. I think that's an unintended consequence of an closed border. And I think you think it's an unintended consequence of an open border.
Yeah.
Human trafficking. So you think if it's a totally wide open border, there would be no human trafficking?
No, I didn't say no. It's the Tolstoy quote, the problems in absence of government are preferable to the problems caused by the government, right?
Okay.
I think, there will always...
lack of police?
No, there will always be human trafficking. However, if they don't have to be snuck across the border, there will be less human trafficking.
In that sense.
Yeah.
But I mean, if the borders are wide open and we continue to have these welfare incentives.
I would agree with that.
Okay. Then you're going to get all kinds of, I'm not saying everyone coming over is bad, like morally bad, but I'm Presbyterian. But I mean, you are going to get plenty of drugs, criminal activity, trafficking coming through. I mean, I don't see how, like just math wise, if you open it up, that's going to come through. I also want to just add, when we talk about how we're supposed to respect the government and do what the government says, what about when the government or the governing people aren't doing what the government's supposed to do? If the government's supposed to protect us and the person at the top, who shall remain unnamed, but rhymes with Zidane, isn't doing what the government's supposed to do and is opening up the borders wide open, then as Christians, sort of, how do we respond to that?
The question is definitions in the Supreme Court. Is this an invasion, right? Protect us from what? If the governments are supposed to protect us
Fentanyl,
from invasion,
trafficking, crime.
Well, that's different than I think Article 3 of the Constitution, which is it Article 1, Section 3 or Article 3, Section 1? Not sure.
I always get this confused.
That talks about, states have a right to organize a militia to defend against an invasion before the federal government actually has a right to mobilize or has the ability to mobilize, right?
Right.
That's what this is a debate over.
Yeah.
That's why it's going to the Supreme Court, is to say, does Texas have a right? And it's all going to hinge around the definition of invasion.
Sure.
You're talking about, what is the state's job? Is it to protect us from invasion? Well, the question is, what I brought in the very beginning, are these economic migrants or are these an invading military force?
Both, yes.
What they're saying is that they need amnesty. And so we have
I disagree with the amnesty.
We have abused the word amnesty now, so that they just come over, they throw their ID away at the border. There's whole stacks and stacks of them. And one of the main things that people say about Trump and how horrible he was because he separated families. Okay, and he would do DNA tests. He would separate families because traffickers will lie. Okay, they'll say, "Oh, that's my nephew, or that's my daughter, that's my son."
You separate them for 5 minutes, and
you do a quick DNA test and you find out. Yes, that is for the good of the child. But people go around still to this day. Saying, "How dare you separate families?" Like he's tearing mothers and children apart. But let me just ask a foundational question. Sure. Why are they coming to America in the first place? What is it that America has to offer?
That was my question to you guys.
Okay, what's the answer?
Yeah, I think it's pretty obviously economic.
Okay, all right. So why is it that we have some kind of economic engine that other nations don't? What's unique about America?
We have a free market.
What else?
Stable form of government.
Stable form of government, rule of law, enforceable contracts, honorable society, generally speaking, right?
I would say most of those things come from free association, right? Free markets come from free association. I can talk to somebody and they can talk to me. I can hire them. They can hire me. I can.
For now.
Sure.
Okay, we're the world reserve currency. I mean, all of those things, though, we're losing. That's kind of my point, which is like if you have an open border and people want to flock in because you have all this to offer, if you give up all the things that make your country what it is, then you won't be a great country pretty soon anyway. And there's just not enough wealth to go around. I mean, most people on Earth would want to come to America, okay, because America is wealthier than pretty much every nation on Earth, or they want to go to Northern Europe, or wherever.
Talk to Europeans; they're pretty chill. Like they're not trying to flock to America.
No way. Like nationalism, populist is on the rise all over Europe too.
Which is why they don't want to come to America.
The biggest single party in Germany right now is I can't remember the name of it. It's Deutschland First or something. But but I mean, and they're trying to make that party illegal.
But those are those two views are in conflict, right?
How?
If nationalism is rising and people want to stay and grow their country, they're not wanting to come to America.
Say that one more time.
If all over Europe, right?
Yeah. No, they don't want to come to America. Right. I'm saying immigrants from Syria, for example, are going
you're talking
into
about the global South.
Yeah.
You said everyone wants to come to America. It's like,
I'm saying most people on Earth, I don't know, 50% of people on Earth live in worse conditions than if they had the choice to come to America, they would. But then if they did, then America wouldn't be America.
Guys, Sarah here. Sorry to interrupt what I'm sure is an amazing podcast episode, but I just wanted to tell you that Theology by the Pint is growing. We are now a 501c3 nonprofit organization, and we're expanding. This coming year, with your help, we'll grow our reach by adding events in multiple Houston suburbs, as well as launch a youth version. Don't worry, those will be pints of iced coffee, not beer. We're adding follow-up conversations to reach the spiritually curious and the unchurched. We're also growing our connections and partnerships with more local churches, and you can help us grow by praying for us, by telling your friends or church about us, and of course, by partnering with us financially. To donate, go to theologybythepint.org/give. You know, if each of our podcast listeners gave $100, we would reach our annual budget right then. Consider donating today. Okay, enjoy the rest of the show.
So my point is that the number one job of a government seems to create a harmonious, peaceful, safe place for its citizens. If it doesn't do that, there's no point for it existing, you know?
Agreed.
So it's like, yes, it's a betrayal of its number one job. And whether or not they're coming in with arms doesn't change the fact that it could be an invasion. For all we know, these are. I mean, there was a guy the other day who was asked by a reporter, like innocently going up to him saying, "Who are you?" And
he said, "One day you'll know.
Do you know who I am?" Basically, yeah.
And
it
like
was creepy.
And so someone did some facial recognition or something like, "Oh, turns out this guy is an actual terrorist, like who's now gone, who we don't have, and his trial date is like 2029."
Oh, geez.
It is such. I mean, that's generally speaking, they're letting everyone in on these amnesty charges, and the court dates to come back and report voluntarily after we give them a phone, after we give them cash, after we kick people out of schools so that they can go sleep on cots in their gymnasium. After we do all that, show up to court in 2029. It's crazy. So what is going to happen? It's so cynical. This is why our politics is so divided, because it is so cynical and dark what is happening, where they are going to let in all of these people. It is a plan. It is working to perfection. They say, "Oh, we need more money to secure the border." No, they want more money to facilitate more people coming in faster. It is such a lie. It is so cynical. And then if and when Trump gets elected and he does try to do the work of deporting people who are not citizens, who do not belong here, and it's going to be messy, they're going to say, "Look at that horrible Nazi. He's a fascist. He's setting up concentration camps." And, you know, so what's the alternative? We just are lawless. We have no border. It's so cynical to play. And I'm not going to be played. You know, I'm not going to just stand around and be like, "Oh, well, you know."
What are you going to do? Are you going to start a commune?
I'm going to speak. At this point, we are still in the speaking phase, but it's coming down to an armed conflict because of this cynicism and because of the way that they will do evil things but portray themselves in light. Oh, we're just trying to help people. Oh, we just love people. Oh, we blah blah blah. No,
there's an increasing disconnect between rhetoric and reality in a certain form of politics.
Yeah,
I think that's remarkable, and that's. The Kamala Harris speech about abortion that just got released was Miltonian in its verbiage. Was it
Orwellian?
No.
When you say Miltonian, you mean Milton as in what?
As in the way that Satan talks in Paradise
Lost.
Gotcha.
So Milton.
Let's just go to that article next. Okay. I know it wasn't the order we're going to do,
but have we settled the Constantino wire situation?
We have not settled anything.
Do you think that?
But we're half an hour in, friend.
Do you think that Texas is going to start the second Civil War?
Well, interesting. What has been interesting in the last day and quite comforting is that many governors of states, including, you know, the pretty moderate governor of Virginia, you know, Louisiana,
Florida,
you know, there's kind of a block of country of states with sort of Kansas being an opening and like Mississippi being an opening, but there's kind of a block of states where governors have said, "We have your back, Texas." Yeah. I mean, going all the way up to Iowa. So,
I think pretty soon New York is going to have Texas's back on this.
Because they have the influx of people they can't handle.
Eric Adams is losing his mind with this issue.
I mean, regardless of what position you take on this, what an absolutely genius political move by Greg Adams. The whole busing thing. I mean,
Abbott.
Yes.
Yeah.
Nick
Adams,
Greg
Eric
and
Adams.
DeSantis.
Okay. So
I wanted to talk about the years long trial dates that are never going to happen. You're trying to sell me on the
not trial, just
the
hearings on whether amnesty. But it's like, here's what I'll say: if that standard of amnesty applies, everyone on earth could come to America.
Agreed.
Basically, if you're impoverished.
But like the bureaucracy of government and how incompetent government is like not an argument that we need more of the government, right?
I'm not saying we need more of the government. I just need the government to do its job. I mean, the Remain in Mexico policy that Trump came up with was innovative and brilliant, and it worked. Period.
From the southern, Southern American.
What we basically did is we said, "Hey, Mexico, keep them out of your southern border, or we're going to tariff you all to hell." And that's what he did, and it worked. I mean, the moment he said that, Mexico's like, "Okay, we'll help you." Brilliant. I mean, how do you get out of the middle of this problem? How do you put the onus on someone else? You threaten them with an economic consequence. No war was fought.
That's how I parent my children.
But here is my point. There's nothing stopping Mexico from being America. There's nothing stopping. I mean, yes, we have natural resources here, but it's our form of government. It's our trustworthy nature. It's our people. It's the brilliance of our country. We have a great country. We have a brilliant country. We have an amazing founding, and it's what allowed us to be. And the fact that we're a Christian country, yes, I said it. It's what has allowed us to be prosperous. Now, if you just give it all away, you're not going to have any prosperity to share.
Well, so this is the big issue, right? This is what I was trying to bring up: is the whole impetus for the existence of the modern state is self-interest. The whole impetus for Christian ethics is self-sacrifice. You cannot legislate morality, not in the sense that you can't bring morals into laws. All laws are moral, right? All laws are inescapably contain moral judgments. But you cannot create any sort of external pressures or values or restrictions or requirements that is going to force someone to be moral on the inside.
Yeah.
Right. All you can do is try to limit external evils with external laws. But the whole point, the real solution, this is the white pill portion of the broadcast, ladies and gentlemen. The real solution to the problem of immigration does not come from law. It comes from people's hearts and people's hearts being changed. If we welcome our neighbors, and that's not just if we as the United States welcome our neighbors. If people in Mexico welcome their neighbors, if people in Ecuador and El Salvador and all of these places welcome their neighbors and work to create free and harmonious and just societies that are in line with biblical principles, this would not be an issue. The problem of illegal immigration is the problem of the fall. You cannot solve the problem of illegal immigration without solving the global problem of injustice. And law does not solve injustice.
So what does?
Jesus Christ.
Right. But what do we do in this already not yet zone to help the current situation?
Oh, I am of the opinion that I don't have to have an opinion on that.
Okay. That's handy.
I'm not an expert. I don't know.
Yeah.
Right. And I don't feel like I have to sit up here and fix it. I know I'm listening.
And intrastate versus nation to nation, right? We have different policies.
Yeah.
Again, our intrastate relationship is open borders.
Think about it this way.
Right. Like if we had a bunch of migrants from, I don't know, like the south side of Chicago migrating to Houston, Texas, right? Like we could not, there would be no way to shut
or blacks going to the north, during the industrial era after slavery.
Or Californians coming to Texas.
Yeah. Stop.
Georgia used to be a prison state and then they can't, there are going to be different people with different varying levels of crime. I mean, that's inside the United States.
That's why we have the 10th Amendment. Basically, hey, anything we didn't talk about, here, the states can do. And so the states.
Y'all remember the 10th Amendment? Y'all remember that existed at one point?
Well, states are. It's okay for states to be like little places of experimentation.
I know, like Marbury versus Madison, but interstate commerce, like you're literally not allowed to close your border to another state.
Well, there was a whole article I didn't share, but it was like totally like life changing, and basically it's an argument
but I didn't share it.
It's an argument that the federal government is as it exists totally unconstitutional, and basically it's the Commerce Clause and the General Welfare Provision. That over the last century the courts have just piled everything into that. Everything. I mean, every three-letter administration, every activity of the state is for the general welfare or literally not growing wheat. This is the famous case. Not growing wheat become your impact. Feeding your own family with the wheat that you're not putting on the market
somewhere else. Is violating interstate commerce.
It is so insane. I mean, we have to roll back.
Look at you guys agreeing. That's so nice.
We have so much to roll back.
Speaking of ballooning rights that don't actually exist in the Constitution.
Okay, so apparently
Kamala.
Thank you. Harris.
Oh my gosh, you guys.
Kicks off, this is from The Guardian, kicks off abortion rights tour. It's kind of like when the Rolling Stones go out,
Taylor Swift,
it's like it's just like that. A tour on the 51st anniversary of Roe v. Wade. Vice President expected to announce support for more access to abortion. Should begin tour in battleground state of Wisconsin. Kamala Harris, did I say that right?
Yes.
Kamala Harris kicked off her much vaunted abortion rights nationwide tour in Wisconsin on Monday as Joe Biden convened a meeting of his task force on reproductive health care access.
Reproductive health care.
And a tag team. Okay. I can't even make it through the first paragraph.
Look here. Yes. This is the second page. Proud that women across our nation are suffering, Harris will say, according to excerpts from her speech obtained by the Associated Press. Proud that women have been robbed of a fundamental freedom, that doctors could be thrown in prison for caring for patients, that young women today have fewer rights than their mothers and grandmothers. Wow, that sounds really good. right? We're against
None of us would want any of that. Yeah.
I'm definitely against people being in prison for wrong reasons.
But this is what I'm talking about, this Miltonian rhetoric.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because what's she actually saying? Are you proud that women across our nation are emotionally impacted because they cannot kill their children?
Right.
Are you proud that women have been told that they cannot kill their children?
Right.
That doctors could be thrown in prison for killing children?
Right.
That young women today don't have the ability to kill their children like their mothers and grandmothers did? Yeah. I'm hecka proud of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whoa, language.
Sorry.
My gosh.
Calm down.
I'm absolutely proud
I
of
said
that.
the HE double hockey sticks.
Oh, we
were
all
earlier,
heard.
And Sarah's already
I was here for that
fuming
one.
over it. Yeah. I don't know if that's really a curse word. Anyway, it's all about the euphemisms. I mean, so much of our political discourse or cultural discourse is shrouded in euphemisms. It's like substitute words, that don't. So if you just say what abortion is, if we can agree that abortion is killing a baby, it makes things a lot clearer.
And it's not just substituting words. Excuse me. It's not just making them a little bit more flowery and a little bit more flowery. It's actually saying something that's the opposite. Reproductive health care is the opposite of killing.
Right.
Healthcare is helping someone not die.
Right.
It's
and
crazy.
helping human beings create more human beings.
Yeah.
Because that's what reproduction is.
Don't get all Catholic on me. I'm pro-contraception. I'm just not pro-abortion.
Yeah. Well, no, I wasn't
helping human beings create other human beings. It's like,
Yeah.
Okay.
I think you can. I mean, culturally, I think the Catholics are right about the contraceptive kind of mindset.
Yeah.
However, there are different sorts of contraception.
Right.
Some terminate fertilization and some prevent it. I think preventing is more or less fine.
Yeah.
I mean, even Catholics think that because
Oh, we're gonna start talking about sex.
I wasn't going to go there, but
Which leads us
And actually, I'm wrong about that. I'm kind of wrong about that. I was going to talk about the rhythm method, but I'm not going to do that now. Okay. Anyway, it's just so incredibly dark, and I guess there's a part. Let me be honest. There's a part of me that not to get hyper political, and these views are only my own.
Right.
Well, no, I mean this is a cultural issue. This is a moral issue.
For sure.
I'm trying to figure out how the Democrat Party, like, what is it about America that it even likes? Like, what does it even stand for? Everything that I hear from this party at this moment is just so incredibly dark. I mean, basically, we want you to have the right to take the life of your child. We don't want to have borders as a country. I'm going, what is it about America that you like? I mean, what is it that you're fighting for here? What do you want to defend?
The ability to mutilate your children after a 15-minute gender interview.
Then there's that.
Okay. I'm not pro-choice. I'm not. But no, they disagree with you guys on definitions, right? They disagree on, is it a life?
You got to pull that
Sure.
back
Not
closer.
anymore.
You got to decide if you're going to sit up or sit back. Either way.
Back when I was at Texas A&M, we were with the Texas Right for Life organization. It was really cool. We were there when the Planned Parenthood got shut down there and taking pictures outside of it. That was fun. But when we would debate people, it's always down to the question, is it a life?
Sure.
Right? And they disagree with us on that.
I actually think more and more people aren't disagreeing about
people
that.
are just biting the bullet on that nowadays.
Yeah.
Especially because for years, like, bioethicists have agreed.
There's that one guy that said up to 6 months.
No.
Or the two Australians.
Singer, right?
Well, Peter Singer says that also you can just kill disabled children.
That too.
And then the two Australian scientists that published their article, Why Should the Child Live? Advocating for post-birth abortions.
Yeah, up to 2 years.
All I'm saying is
it's Singer and a couple
increasingly people
Australians.
think it's a life. And they don't.
What else is it?
Care.
Nobody disputes that it's a life. Of course it's a life.
Yeah.
What kind of life is it? Is it a person?
Is it a human person?
Yes.
Yeah.
No, it is not.
Deserving
Nobody's
of-
even debating that it's a human life. It's not a cat.
Well, right. Is it personhood?
Is
right?
it a person?
Right.
Or when does it get rights, which is kind of the same question of when is it a
does
person?
the person get
Well, I will tell you, talking to college students as often as I can, they will, the answer I get, 90% of the time, the answer I get from those who are not already pro-life, so to speak, is, I don't really like that phrase, but anyway, is when it's born.
Yeah.
Oh.
I mean, what? So then you get into philosophical questions about the nature of a thing being changed at birth. Why? What is fundamentally changed about that thing from 6 inches
minute
ago?
before? Yeah.
Yeah. So you get down to like for those who haven't heard, SLED, size, development. How does it go?
Time isn't one.
Location, size, location, something in development. Anyway, the idea is that we don't discriminate against any of these other things. Once someone
Between
is born.
a 1-year-old and a 30-year-old. So why would we do it between a negative?
But why? But I mean, I think at this point, if we're going to be really, clear about this, like if you look at how people vote, the by far the biggest single voting block, for positions like this are single women. If you look at like kind of who votes for, conservative or liberal policies, it's pretty much like, in terms of like married men, single men, married women, single women are like plus 40 for the Democrat Party at this point, or liberal policies. Everyone else is like plus 2, plus 4, kind of one way or the other. So I think basically they're saying, we're all in. We're all in on the single woman thing. We want women to be single. We want to give them every access, every opportunity, because once they get married, the statistics show they start voting for more conservative policies. So
we should create an amendment that re-outlaws women's rights to vote.
Oh my gosh, here we go.
Well, some people have claimed that. I'm not saying that. Maybe we should get women married sooner, Maybe we should start talking about that again.
Peterson said enforce monogamy. You need to enforce monogamy.
Is that your best Jordan Peterson?
It's not.
Okay, because it sounded a little like your best Jimmy Stewart. Which was really good, actually.
It was a good Jimmy Stewart. Yeah.
The question is, like, with the, conversation about is it life, is it murder off the table, but like, enforcing monogamy or like creating institutions to push people to have more kids or to build more families, like, while those would be a good thing, do you do it at the point of a gun?
You create incentives. You do what Hungary does.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to either pull the mic and sit in the back, or you got to stay forward.
I'm going to stay forward.
Hungary says, hey, have 3 kids, you never pay income tax anymore. There are ways you can do this. There are ways you can get back to a single family.
I thought it was done, but maybe I can have one more.
Yeah. I love more people not paying income tax, the better.
Yeah,
I like that.
I mean, and what they're saying is, hey, those 3 people will pay income tax until they can have their own 3 kids, and in the long run, we'll prosper as a nation. Every developed nation on earth doesn't even have substitution, birth rates at this point. So there's a demographic bomb about to hit every developed nation on earth.
And I was just going to say, including America.
But we don't want to bring more people in here.
But I was literally just going to say, why do we favor bringing in people where we?
That's why. The reason immigration exists is because of the birth rate. That's what they can't tell you. That's what they. What's that? You think I'm wrong?
Wait. You think the reason it exists, like, naturally or artificially?
Artificially.
Okay.
Yeah. What I'm saying is that the reason the politicians can't come out and say have more kids, right? For whatever reason, what they want are more taxpayers. They want to convert the immigrants into voters and taxpayers. That's all they are to them. They're just widgets. They're just lumps of people being brought in, And if a few terrorists get in the meantime, fine. If a few whatever get in, crazy people get in, fine. But that's how they view it. And we do need to have a serious conversation that says we need people to have children, like in our country. We need for our country to prosper. Like, it's not a small thing. It's not just some crazy kooky thing. We're not just a quiverful family or whatever. Like, we need our country to have children. We do have some tax benefits to it, but I think we need to be talking about that more. We need to be talking about how you can have a single income and so on. But then you get back to like the inflation issue. Back to immigration. I did want to ask one thing. Do we have a housing shortage or surplus in this country?
No idea.
I don't know. It's complicated.
Okay. Well, are rents going up or down?
Rents are going up.
Okay. Then we have a shortage. So does bringing in millions and millions of people with nowhere to live, does that seem like a good idea? Is that humane?
Let me introduce the supply and demand curve,
question.
right? Like, you have supply and demand, and they drive each other, right? There's the price point, economics 101, that moves along the supply curves and demand curves, and when you increase the supply to respond to an increase in demand, that price point stays the same.
Yeah, but is the supply, is it increasing?
So we can let in 10 million people in.
It's complicated in large cities because of zoning laws, which is one of the reasons why I love Houston.
It takes forever to build something, though. The point is you can let in millions of people in a day, but exaggeration, in a year. But you
300,000 people in a day.
Yeah.
More reasonable number.
Yeah. Or as the Senate just negotiated, 5,000 a day. Anyway, in that crazy bill they're trying to get through. Okay, but how long does it take to build reasonable housing? By the time you've built it, the demand has doubled.
Yes.
I mean, so it's like, I don't know, again, prioritizing your citizens. Do we care that the average person's rent was $1,500 2 years ago and now it's $2,200? I care.
To me, this is like the welfare conversation, right? Like, no, well, I would lower like zoning restrictions in order to address that concern.
Well, I don't think that's
rather than responding to the response.
So the lowering zoning restrictions, who's building the buildings? It's the construction companies. The construction companies are private companies. They have employees. They have to pay taxes. They have to provide health insurance for their employees. They have to be able to make a profit so that they can perpetuate themselves while also paying a livable wage to their employees. As the standard of living wage increases, the capability of the construction companies to support themselves goes down. And so in a little while, the construction companies that were supposed to want to build this cheap, affordable housing have themselves all shut their doors because it's not sustainable.
Right.
So that's supply and demand.
Well, and also it goes to the larger conglomerates that are able, like, it used to be you would have like a contractor that was probably able to grab, 10 people and pour the foundation, put the 2x4 studs, wire it himself, do the plumbing, right? But then as the more arduous zoning restrictions, the more arduous building codes, the more, the harder it gets on the contractor,
right?
Like you said, he's going to drop out, and then the larger company is going to come in,
right? So, because they have the HR, they have the legal, they have the OSHA requirements, they have the whatever,
yes.
And they want, by the way, they want cheap labor. So it's like a self-feeding thing.
But also, what does that do to the price? It drives the price up, right? Which drives the rent up.
So again, the federal government is unconstitutional. And I mean, no joke. I mean, that's actually the Chevron deference case coming up before the Supreme Court and the EPA case that they overturned last year, EPA versus West Virginia. There are some indications that we are starting to roll back the deep state or administrative state or whatever you want to call it. Let me ask you this to end this topic. Is this going to work? Is this Kamala Harris abortion? I mean,
no.
Is it not going to work?
No.
You don't think people are going to be excited about
I think it's going to work with her base, and like Republicans don't listen to her anyway.
Well, her base is like this small, even in the Democratic Party.
No one in the Democrat Party is going to these rallies.
But no, I don't think it's going to work because abortion is now like the people that are supporting abortion and would be voting for Biden-Harris are also now those most vociferous advocates are now not advocating for them anymore because of things like the Israel-Palestine conflict and other stuff that's the hot button issue of the time. So they would say, oh, I'd love to vote for more access to abortion, but I'm not going to vote for you, Biden, because you're supporting Israel.
Yeah. It's strange bedfellows. I know when we talk about this in the past, it's like the cultural dynamics now are so volatile. That's the problem with the woke stuff, right? It's like, well, this is cool today and this is important today. Yeah.
I will say, though, I agree, but I also think there are still a lot of people out there that are really vulnerable to this kind of rhetoric, convincing them that really, it is my body and the state is trying to take my rights away. And they're not thinking through the whole thing in this robust, full-orbed way. They're really convinced that should they have an ectopic pregnancy, they might die because they'll be in some backwoods.
Wait, no. That's real. Ectopic pregnancies are deadly.
I know they're deadly.
Okay.
Yes, and if you have one, they're going to help you not have it.
But the most ardent opponent of abortion, someone like me, would say, an ectopic pregnancy is not an abortion. If you have to take the fetus out to save the mother's life.
And one of the issues is nobody knows biology. Like you ask pro-choicers, they don't know biology at all.
Oh, okay.
But you ask pro-life,
I think pro-life people know biology.
I was going to say, I think there's plenty of young women out there, young single women, who maybe haven't given this a lot of thought, and they hear verbiage like this and they think, well, yeah, I want that. And then they hear the scary stuff like, this is what I was getting at. Someone saying the lie that if you have an ectopic pregnancy or some other, really harm the mother situation, that if you live in a state like Florida or Texas or whatever, you might die. And they're hearing that and they're going, well, I don't want that.
I'm a tad bit worried about judges and juries not knowing biology either, and not knowing the difference between not knowing the difference between an ectopic pregnancy abortion and an abortion abortion.
Okay.
That's what I'm a bit concerned about.
But if you have, let's say Texas has the law that prohibits basically all abortion. Okay. That's our trigger law that went into effect with Dobbs. Okay. Yeah. It would be the same due process to take that woman to trial as any other. You would have police investigation.
Depositions.
You would have a DA.
Yep.
You would have a DA. She would have a right to counsel and defense. You would have a DA deciding to press charges. You would have plea bargains. You would have, she could turn state's witness, right? And she could say, well, if you give me immunity, I'll tell you about the abortionist who's doing it on the side. It would be just like any other case where almost certainly the woman would face no repercussions. Or, she would say, well, I'm a prostitute, and my pimp said if I didn't get an abortion, he would kill me. That's an extenuating circumstance. So it's fear-mongering language that if in a course of due process, almost no woman who got an abortion would face, the death penalty for having an abortion.
Unlike the child.
But we live in times of cheap political talk. You know, not
absolutely.
You know, it's sound bites, and it's so cynical. You know, to use this clouded Meltonian language. Is that right? Mm-hmm. Is that right? So, I mean,
sort of devil satanic.
Here's the good.
That's what I mean.
That's what you mean. I know.
Yeah. I mean, here's the good news. The white pill, I guess, would be that, you know, it's crazy how Christians get portrayed in such a bad light when all we're literally trying to do is help mothers have their children. We're trying to bring new life into the world.
Protect people from dying.
We're trying to protect people from dying. We're trying to encourage people to have healthy sexual relationships, you know, in the covenant of marriage, where the woman is protected and the man is protected as well.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, not just worrying about it up until the time of pregnancy and stepping out, as the stereotype is, right?
That's a stereotype we have to fight too. Yeah.
So many denominations. The Catholic Church.
Say that again?
Well, the Catholic Church is leading the charge on this, right? In terms of young mothers, supporting them.
Yeah.
The level of charity organization that happens not just among the Catholics, but among so many other denominations in order to support and care for and look after vulnerable
not just
young
making
mothers.
sure they're born, but helping them.
Right. That's because that's the soundbite, right?
Right. You only care
about the
Her
baby.
life, not long life.
Meanwhile,
That's
there's
not
3
true.
times as many pregnancy centers as abortion clinics, almost all run by Christians. So yes, many Christians
adoption
are out
agents.
there.
I worked for Catholic Charities for a while, right? We had children's homes at like St. John's and St. Matthew's, St. Jerome's and St. Matthew's. We had a foster program, which like I did the budget for. Like,
In other words,
Christians are doing the ones that are doing the post-birth care that liberals accuse them of not wanting, right? Just because we don't want the government to do it at the point of a gun.
Speaking of relationships,
I was going to say, speaking of having a healthy, happy sexual relationship,
where this was going to go.
bam, found the segue.
when a man and a woman love each other very much, but then the man finds out the woman isn't a woman, well, that's not making any babies, but it is making headlines. Here we go. We're going to talk about Lexi Love, who is not a real person, but many men are falling in love with her and giving her marriage proposals. Here's a few snippets from a couple different articles that I cobbled together. The AI model business is booming, and Lexi Love is only the latest example. Since her debut on the site in June 2023, Love has created a, quote, strong emotional connection, end quote, with many of her paying followers. That's all in one sentence, you guys. Strong emotional connection with many of her paying followers, generating around 30,000 in monthly subscriptions. Some subscribers are even convinced Love is an actual person. And she's gotten 20 marriage proposals per month. So this is a fake, caricature of a woman.
It's the movie Her.
It's the movie Her.
Yeah.
But not just in the movie Her, it was something you listen to and he was talking to. This is lots of pictures. And that's part of the thing, is that they're naughty pictures if you pay more. Lexi, quote, owes her success to the fact that she was designed as more than just a pretty face and amazing body, which she has. And don't go look this up because it's kind of soft porn to look it up. But as she's able to, quote, flirt, laugh, and adapt to different personalities, interests, and preferences. This is where it gets kind of gross because she's sort of forming her, interest in things around whatever man is paying for the subscription. With her growing popularity, Lexi has become a lucrative source of income. This is a testament to her ability to deeply connect with people and provide them with a fulfilling human-like experience despite being AI. So she's a, quote, 21-year-old sushi addict and pole dancing pro. Sorry, I'm just like every cave-dwelling guy. Like, is this what he wants? She's into yoga.
Kind of a odd combination,
It's what every guy, quote,
sushi?
wants. Because she's refined in her taste.
Refined,
okay.
But also she can work a pole.
I got you.
She's just everything you want. You can pay extra if you request naughty pictures. Lexi's creators claim she was designed to be, quote, a perfect girlfriend for many men with flawless features and impeccable style. It goes on and on. But the point is...
Sounds boring.
Well, it's interesting that you say boring because you are married to a real life human woman who is my friend and she's wonderful. This is what, so I have so many problems with this, as you can imagine. Some are the things like, this is gross and it's porn and it's all these kind of things and it's
Objectification.
It's all of that. But at another level, the thing that I think is really gross about it almost has nothing to do with the sort of sexual part of it. What it is that she's adapting, quote, she. I mean, I'm saying she. It's a model algorithm that's spitting out what people want to hear.
He's making her in his image.
This is exactly what I was going to say, is because what it becomes is self-worship. You get her, quote her, to be everything you want that person to be. They send you these pictures. She's like the perfect like measurements, I guess, like every guy wants. And she has no pimples. I mean, she's just this perfect thing. But also she's going to adapt to what you want her to say and think and feel and provide for you what you want, so that you're kind of dating yourself. You're kind of like falling in love with yourself, which, to talk about Milton and Satan, is exactly the original lie, right?
Oh,
like
Appetite for Destruction is your favorite album too? Whoa.
Like, who knew we were the same? Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Let's go get some sushi, which you can't because she's not a real person.
Yeah.
I would want to argue with her. I would want somebody.
she would let you.
I would want somebody that doesn't like my
No, but
favorite
she would
bands.
adapt to that. She'd be like,
Yeah,
you want a
yeah.
sparring partner?
Yeah.
I don't know why she always has this voice, but
Because she's a product.
yeah. It's so gross. And I do think it's not just damaging for the people that are engaging this. I think it's damaging for every person so you have a guy who's subscribing to this and maybe he lives in his mom's basement and he plays a lot of video games, and I'm stereotyping, yes. But let's say that he stops subscribing to this after a while and he goes out in the real world. This is what he's going to expect. And maybe to the point of aggression. I mean, if you get everything you want from the AI, then when you go date a real woman who isn't perfect and is going to sometimes hurt your feelings or say things you don't agree with or whatever, I don't think that's good for women or society. And I mean, it's so bad. Yeah. I don't really have a white pill other than, go ahead.
Counterpoint.
Ken.
The
Yes.
hypergamy guys that have like a, super deep body count are also like really, really awful to women.
Yes.
Right. So like the ones that have dozens of real women under their belt are also like,
They're treating them like this woman,
yeah,
nevertheless.
I agree. But what she's saying is like the risk of this is that it's like, well, no, because even the people that are the opposite of this still fall prey to
There's
that.
plenty of sin to go around.
Yeah.
But so years ago, there was this whole thing that was going to come to Houston. Somehow Mayor Sylvester Turner overturned it, which good for him. Yeah. We were going to have this like back room of a sex shop where you would have these sex robots, and part of the reason why, and I signed the petition to have them not come to Houston, is because they had like a rape setting on them. They had varying degrees of consent that you could set on them, and people were like,
"Oh, that's not a phrase that should be uttered."
Yeah, I know.
Varying degrees of consent.
I know.
Yeah.
But, and so some people were saying, oh, this is actually good because people will do it with these robots, and they won't do it IRL. They won't do it in real life.
Well, it's the same argument with pedophiles.
Yes.
Exactly.
Right. This same thing has been happening in the AI world. The AI art world.
Right.
With pedophilia is you generate these artificial images and no child is harmed, and therefore this is a release for these men, and they're not, because it usually is men.
Well, the problem is you can't run the counterfactual. You can't empiricism this and run two different experiments, one where they actually abuse real kids and one where it's done with like AI and see which one.
No, but we understand human behavior enough to know how this goes. It will get taken outside of the world of fantasy.
Make me do this.
I'll do it. Yeah, make you do it. What?
Just pornography in general. This is part of the argument, right? But like countries with high consumption of pornography are, and this might be a correlation and not a causation.
Yeah.
Right? There's a lot of Islamic countries that don't have any pornography and
don't have any pornography.
Well, okay, they do, but it's under the radar. Yes.
Okay.
Osama bin Laden's stash had.
I was going to say.
Yes.
Our favorite CIA operative.
But it's like Kim Jong-un being fat, right? There's not a lot of other fat people in. So like the average man probably in like Karachi doesn't have a ton of pornography access. And the countries with higher level of access have like lower instances of like man on woman violence, specifically sexual violence. It might be correlation. There might not be any causation there. It might be because
there are other factors that you're not taking into account. Like
that's what I'm saying. Correlation, not causation.
Hyper extreme Muslim ideology
or the fact that pornography leads to increasing social isolation.
Or that
you don't have these relationships for this very reason that you're talking about, Sarah, is that you're now alienated from real people because of your false expectation of fake people.
Right.
And so let's run these surveys. Let's talk about this. Like Generation Z is having less sex than any other generation. Why?
Which to your point, Ken, I guess is less sexual aggression.
Sure.
That's what I'm saying. Like you can't have it both ways and say like if they're not having any sexual interactions, it's going to be more dangerous for women, right? You can't really have it both ways.
Which means we have fewer children, which means we have fewer workers,
goes back to
which means we have more immigrants. Yes.
But I don't
steal the people from other countries.
I don't think the primary harm here that we're arguing for is that any of us is arguing for is, oh, well, this is going to be some direct causation to sexual violence. I think it's more the literal objectification of womanhood as something, as a product that is consumed by a man. That is a mentality that doesn't have to manifest itself in actual physical violence in order to be harmful, right?
Well, so just to take this to a theological place, like if we think, we make fun of this teacher I had in graduate school. He was wonderful, but he would accidentally, you heard me tell this story the other day, in a class about sexuality, he would talk about how humans, we desire the otherness of God. And so he would refer to God as being like the big O other and people being the little O. And so he would say big O, and it was very funny, haha, because it sounded like orgasm. But what he was saying is true. We desire this thing, which is the otherness of God. And when you are married to someone of the opposite sex, you get a glimpse of this otherness because they are not like you. And so when you have a man and a woman married to each other, you have this beautiful thing happening where you have to navigate the world of something that's a little bit not like you, but also like you. And sanctification happens in that space. If you have an AI generated algorithm that's going to be just like you, then we become less and less and less adept at actually doing the very thing that will make us closer and closer to God.
I was going to say that exact. I was literally about to talk about the other, which is a phrase I generally kind of repel at, but there's a lot of truth in it as well. But I would argue this is an argument against homosexuality as well.
I think so too.
Not to talk about it, but it's the sameness that's the problem. It's the otherness and the partnership and this kind of flourishing that I mean,
expand on that. I don't understand the point.
Well, you need male and female to be fruitful and multiply.
Yeah, they're not making. And to have men, though. I mean, I'm sure some of them are.
No, that's part of the problem as well.
Lexi's a female.
Yeah. Yes, but you're creating. But she adapts as an AI caricature or creation. She's adapting to what you like. Like I said, she likes GNR too. Or she likes sushi too. Or you are creating her. She is adapting to you.
She's not the other that you get when
you are.
She's not pushing back. She's saying you're a genius, Ken. I love you. Keep talking theology.
But it's not, dude. I don't. That's. Dude, come on now.
What?
I don't like the law either. Let me stop. I'm joking.
I'm an anarchist too.
You added a syllable to it.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean. Okay, anyway, I make a bad robot. No, but
the two questions are: is it healthy? No, obviously not. Yeah. The second one is: am I going to use a gun to prevent other people from?
What are you talking about? What are you talking about? Guns?
Making it illegal.
Law. He's talking about law.
Making it illegal. Am I going to send somebody with a gun to confiscate somebody's computer and throw them in a cage for using this?
I would be so happy. I know this is going to get me canceled by everyone. I'd be so happy if pornography was illegal.
I was just about to say, I think that you can make a strong case for criminalizing pornography. I don't think you can do the same with this. Because in pornography, actual people are being harmed. And
that's a really interesting part of this. Okay.
So again,
well, it comes back to decency laws. That would be the criteria by which we would judge this. I think we used to have decency laws. It wasn't even that long ago.
Mm-hmm. So this is a social harm, but it's not a social harm of the sort that
victimless crime,
right? So it's a social harm,
and suicide
leads to the breakdown of society and of social norms. But it's not the sort of thing that the government ought to intervene in. I'm very much against this whole category of public health, as defined by whatever.
Right. It's a value-laden phrase that any worldview can dump its values into.
So because this is an AI, and there is no woman being victimized, the victim is consenting. Okay, right. Now, the victim is the customer. Now
go back to the sex robots and child thing, because there's no victim there, but it's still.
Well, I don't think that the issue is. Yeah, you're right. I don't think the issue there is.
It's the same argument
to outlaw AI pedophilia, except for the fact that there are already existing laws. It's that I'm so skeptical of the fact that actually works. Right? I don't think that being able to freely indulge in a shadow version of the thing that you really want to and stimulate your taste and your reflexes and your habits in such a way is actually going to reduce any think about serial killers, right? Serial killers
to escalate,
right? The serial killer
titrate
has a craving for a certain form of activity. And they try, because it's very dangerous when they go out and indulge in their activity, they try to substitute it with other lesser forms, and it is not effective.
All serial killers start out by killing like the family
Animals,
cat or like a mouse or something, but not every 7-year-old boy who kills a mouse is going to be a serial killer, right?
Correct.
There is something else baked into that cake, which is where this gets really tricky, is because when we say, okay, we know for a fact that these are going to cause this other really, really dangerous thing, that
I see what you're saying,
you
Ken.
can't prove it one way or another. It evades empiricism because we cannot run the study. We cannot run the study with real child pornography and see if that is more dangerous than.
But there are enough sex robots in Europe. I actually think numbers will be coming out. That, I mean, it'll still always have to look at correlation and wonder if it's causation, I suppose.
Right.
Yeah.
It's tricky, but
It is tricky.
The biggest question is, do we use a gun to prevent it? And I am, that question is always the one that gets me.
Well, that's why we invite you on the show. So you say crazy stuff like that. I'm joking. I hear what you're saying, and it is dicey. But yeah, I agree. If we could stop with pornography, that'd be a big step.
And there are indications that might be happening. Right?
That would be awesome.
More legal restrictions on pornography than have existed in the past.
I will say this is a little bit of this isn't quite white pill, but it does make me think. So back a lifetime ago, I was getting my graduate degree in counseling, and I did family and marriage counseling for a while. And part of what fascinated me was the differences between men and women. So I think, if you want to sort of be on the other side of this, and you're in the dating world or you're married, celebrate the otherness of the person that you're with. And maybe when you have that moment where there's some sort of tension, like, why are men like this? Or men are saying, like, why is this woman like this? To sort of kind of laugh to yourself, like, oh, but it's not an AI model that's making me worship myself. I am so serious. Like, celebrate the fact that they're different and you get to explore it and you get to figure out the wild west of the other sex, and not be caught in this trap, which will eventually lead you to like everything that happened with the fall.
Also, blonde hair, blue eyes. There might be a little bit of racism in there. I don't know.
I'm sure. Yeah. I'm sure we'll get new models soon.
Yeah. I tried to find a Luther quote. Well, I couldn't find it, but he has this great quote where he talks about the way to, end sin is not to indulge it, but to extinguish it. And so, this idea of like indulging a little bit to get your your beak wet, and then it'll go away. No.
It's not how habits work.
No. Must be extinguished. But we have another AI story you want to talk about?
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Ooh, this one.
So speaking of AI sinking its silicon tentacles into every aspect of our life, this was one that probably passed a lot of people by, unless you're like me and you're invested in this transhumanism dialogue. OpenAI quietly removes ban on military use of its AI tools. OpenAI quietly walked back a ban on the military use of ChatGPT and its other artificial intelligence tools, although its policies still state that users should not, quote, use our service to harm yourself or others, including to, quote, develop or use weapons.
Okay.
Up until at least Wednesday, OpenAI's policy page specified that the company did not allow the usage of its models for, quote, activity that has high risk of physical harm, including weapons development and military warfare. And of course, that all changed once OpenAI saw the possibility for a gigantic military contract.
Yes,
probably.
Paycheck.
So this is how the T-100 in Terminator learns how to speak.
That's
just
why I
like
thought
us.
we were talking post-apocalyptic and not post-apologetic.
Yeah.
Well, we could be doing
If you guys don't know, I hate the military, so like,
boom, we're on the same page. Here we go. No.
So here it is, right? This. If you've been following the story of OpenAI and how it has morphed and done a complete 180 from when Elon Musk sort of founded the whole thing, this is just one more step in the sort of slimy nature of this company, that they are now no longer. And it'll be another month or 2 months until they take this other stuff about developing or using weapons. They are now no longer even trying to pretend that they are going to be pacifistic. They are, in fact, in bed for millions of dollars with the United States Department of Defense. And we've seen this, right? We've seen this in other areas. Researchers use AI models in order to simulate new antibiotics. Or to create new materials that we've never used before. These sort of large language models are being used to create new tools. And now here we have OpenAI, who seems to be currently working on a very similar process, except for warfare.
Yeah. So the other, agree. This sounds like nothing good can come from this. But the other side of it would say something like, well, China's going to do it. So our existential threat is going to do it. And so we basically, the idea is that the future war is going to be, who has the best AI. I mean, that's actually Elon Musk's, theory.
Correct.
He wants to use AI to better humanity, but he's like, it's inevitable. The AI arms race has already begun. Nuclear, who cares? It's all
he wants
about,
to be interplanetary to avoid that, so that we have lots of different outposts. So if one of them goes down,
we need to get out of
humanity
space.
Doesn't die.
Forget space. It's done. We're not going to live on Mars. Get over it. Okay. But we're not going to colonize Mars. Anyway. But yeah, I mean,
I think we are going to colonize Mars.
Let's save that for another one.
I would love to be an interplanetary species. That would be amazing.
I think that's the whole point of the eschaton. I think.
Okay, let me ask.
Let's roll, dude.
We have.
Let me ask this. I mean, if we knew there was like a lab somewhere developing AI, right? I mean, there have been people who have said this. The people who are like warning about transhumanism, they're like, we need military strikes against, the development of AI. These servers must die. What do you think?
The issue is that's impossible.
Yeah.
Right. And this was my big problem with.
We can't go over the whole Earth with a heat map and be like, oh, looks like they're doing.
So I'd encourage everybody, if you're interested in this, read Nick Bostrom's book, Superintelligence. He and I don't agree on a lot of things, but he is very sober in his account of what these dangers are, at least in the later editions of this book. And he talks about the fact that an AI lab proportionally is incredibly small and incredibly undetectable.
Yeah.
Right.
It's not a big base
with
airplanes.
You don't need a huge infrastructure in order to create one. You need a small team of computer engineers that are working somewhere. And so inside the state, outside the state, we don't know. Yeah. And that is exactly the danger, is that the box has been opened. Somebody is going to take this out of the box. We cannot go backwards. But it's also really scary to go forwards.
Yeah.
So unless we do something like the Geneva Convention, or like we did in the Cold War, and just everybody realizes that this is so terrifying that we shouldn't be messing around with it anymore. But then you still have the risk of what do you do with rogue agents or rogue nations like North Korea or China that are say, well, no, we're not going to participate in this.
Yeah, you don't have to have a rogue nation.
We're just going to do this.
It's a rogue
laboratory.
Yeah.
That's it. Like you said, 10 engineers in a laboratory creating the next super virus that's way more contagious than COVID and way more deadly than Ebola. That's terrifying. And that doesn't take a nation.
And not to bring it back to the JFK assassination.
You always do.
We should start making this a drinking game.
But, the issue at the time was arguably that, Kennedy essentially and Khrushchev had essentially agreed to end the Cold War without a clear winner. And the State Department, more or less, the Defense Department, more or less, no, we want to win it. And if that means nuclear tactical strikes, it's no big deal. That's fine. We want the Cold War ramp up, et cetera, et cetera. We want the war in Vietnam. We want the hostility with Cuba. And you're opposed to those things, so we're going to take you out. And so, I don't know. I think this is it feels like this is the next military money train. This is the next gravy train. Well, here's the next thing to be concerned about is our enemy getting AI, so we need to spend trillions of dollars on it. And here's another money laundering operation. And at the end of the day, the whole nuclear thing, I'm not saying it wasn't legit, but really the idea of what do you call that when each side is going to hurt each other?
Mutually assured destruction.
It pretty much worked, and I don't know. Maybe that's if we can develop AI basically in the same way. I don't know. Maybe that's a good thing.
Yeah, but who's the we?
Well, I agree.
That's the question.
Yeah.
Because AI is really, really good at two things. It's good at pattern recognition, and it's way better than humans at pattern recognition.
Sure.
And that was our bag for a couple million years. We were the only ones that were good at this thing. But it's also really, really good at experimenting without actually having to build a real thing. So it can predict, because of the pattern recognition, it can predict, hey, this other sequence of, I don't know, genomes, if you're creating a virus, or it can analyze a bunch of rocket data and tell you, hey, this combination of fuel will go better. It can analyze aerodynamics and say okay, this is where you need to put the payload. That's scary because it doesn't need to go test that in the middle of a Nevada desert. It can run a million simulations.
Yeah, but a Chinese AI shutting down our power grid would be way worse than a missile getting a foot closer to its mark. You know what I'm saying? So that's the kind of AI that kind of worries me, is hacking our ability to create fuel or electricity or, the internet or something like that. So
this sounds scary.
Okay.
How should we respond? If people are listening and they're like, well, this is actually just giving me more anxiety.
Turn Siri
Do you
off.
have yeah, really?
Oh, I think the solution might come from AI. Better battery technology is right around the corner. Lithium ion is like great.
What does that solve?
Oh, you just talked about power grids.
Oh.
You just talked about power grids, right?
Well, yeah.
Not all of us know what these fancy words mean, and that
Gotcha.
will help us in that.
I don't think there's okay, but
a better battery. Like that's what the entire scientific community needs to be looking for, is because lithium ion batteries are good for like my electric skateboard. They're great for your phone. They're iffy on a Tesla, and there's no way they can power like a house.
But if we could get a really nice battery that can power the laser gun that the T100 uses.
Or power your house in the middle of like a forest based off like a solar panel, and like even in the winter.
Throw 2.0.
That's what I'm saying. Like if AI can help us develop things for independence, then the power grid shutting off might not be as scary.
Okay, so your sort of white pill approach to this is use AI for our own benefit.
We're going to use AI for our own benefit. The only question is, does it outpace our appetite for destruction?
My white pill is that we're going to have mutually assured destruction with AI.
Yeah.
My white pill is metaphysical, which is I don't think,
Cheater.
I don't think artificial general intelligence is possible.
I don't either.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's all derivative, and it will always be derivative.
It will always be derivative of the actual thinking that's being done by human persons.
John Lennox says the same thing.
Yeah,
I mean, a lot of people do. Yeah.
I don't think that we're going to get an intelligence that is robust enough to be able to do a lot of the things that we're afraid of.
Yeah.
And we also know from the inspired scripture, which is the word of God, he's sort of given us a chart of this is how all of this is going to wrap up. Now, I'm not advocating for go and get your end times charts out, but I am advocating for the fact that God has told us that he will rule and he will reign and he will bring his kingdom in, and it will be a just and peaceable kingdom, which we can have hope in. So in the meantime, we should still be worried that this is a very powerful tool that can be used. We're still catching up with all of the things that this can do, right? It only came out, last September? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And already we're seeing remarkable stuff happening. We still, I don't think, fully understand what the capabilities of this are. But it's not going to end in Terminator. I don't think it will. It might end in some nuclear attacks or something like that.
Yeah, that's possible.
So I'm not saying it's not bad, but I am saying that there is a hope and there is a peaceable kingdom at the end of this story.
Yeah. It's good.
We're out of time.
For sure.
Where can people find you, Ken?
Here, all right, at Theology by the Pint.
If you come to any Theology by the Pint, you will be greeted by Ken. He'll give you your cup and your tickets.
Yep.
Volunteer extraordinaire.
For real.
And where can people find you?
I'm the chair of apologetics at Houston Christian University over there on Fondren Road. And we take students and we do classes that relate to this sort of thing. So if you guys want to come and study with us, then hc.edu is the website.
Nice.
hc.edu?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. It's not hcu.edu.
No,
okay.
that's a different school.
Oh, okay. hc.edu. Yeah. Cool. And Sarah, I don't know where people can find you.
People can find me, theologybythepint.org. And then I'll lead you to all the other places. We're on Instagram. We're on Facebook. I'm actually not on Twitter, but you are. Yeah. So what about you? Where can people find you?
flhouston.org. First Lutheran, much to their shame.
We should tell people about a couple upcoming events. Mm-hmm. We have some nerdy conversations happening in February. We're going to be talking about purgatory, not just the Catholic kind, but is there a Protestant version? So if that interests you, go to our website and find out about that. And then in March, we're going to be talking about, does the Bible sometimes get it wrong? Can you trust it? Is it authoritative? Is it inerrant? All that kind of jazz. Mm-hmm. And then in April, we're going to be talking about homosexuality. Is there a biblical case to be made for homosexuality? And then I'm going to say one more just because it was just determined in our last poll. In May, we're going to be talking about aliens and or demons.
Oh, okay.
Oh, here we go.
That's the one I voted for.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
Maybe we'll get you on the panel for that.
You should be.
Anyway, so lots of fun things coming up. Check out theologybythepint.org to find out more about everything.
Very cool. Until next time, we encourage you to question freely, think deeply, and disagree as needed.